of the things that I'm praying big about, even right now, is for my son Matthew. He's going to be turning 7 in August. And even though he's just coming up on 7 years of age, I'm already praying about the woman that he's going to marry. And my prayer for him is that he will have a very happy and blessed marriage. To give us some insights on how to achieve just that, we're joined now by author Fred Stoker, widely known for his bestseller, Every Man's Battle, which details his personal struggle with sexual purity. His latest is a collaborative effort written with his son Jason entitled Hero, Becoming the Man She Desires. It tells about Jason's heroic efforts to go against the mainstream and set high standards, very high standards and boundaries for his God-given sexuality. And in fact, on his marriage day, when the minister said to Jason, "You may now kiss your bride," that kiss was the first one ever for the newly married couple. Fred Stoker is here to tell us all about how to become a true hero. Welcome to 100 Huntley Street, Fred.
Great to be here.
Now, I do want to talk about Hero, Becoming the Man She Desires. What a provocative title. But first, just take us back just a few steps and talk about your own struggle with your sexuality.
Back in college, I had moved away from home to California. I had grown up in Iowa, and I just got real lonely, homesick, and I started to find myself hooked on pornography, and then I began chasing women. And really, by 1 year out of college, I had 4 girlfriends. I was sleeping with 3 of them, and essentially engaged to be married to 2 of them. So, I mean, I was way outside of God's plan, but I wasn't a Christian yet.
But a remarkable circumstance, though, for a young man to find himself in, because your father had had many mistresses, and you had vowed growing up, when you saw all the pain and torment that that caused, you said, "I will never be like my dad." And you were committed, at least in your inner man, you're like, "I will not be like my dad." But here you were, as a young man in your early 20s, and you had become just the very thing you said you would not be.
Yeah, I mean, I used to listen to my mom sob through the walls. I mean, my bedroom was right next to hers, and she would sob and say, "You know, I'm sorry I can't be the dad you need. I'm sorry I wasn't the woman that your dad needed." And it was the pain of listening to those sobs and talking to her that really settled in my heart that I wanted to be the kind of guy, a heroic guy, that wouldn't treat women that way. Trouble is that in this society, we pick up a double mind very quickly when it comes to the way we relate to people, especially the way guys relate to women. And it became very clear to me that if I was not dating, if I wasn't doing the physical things like all the other guys talked about in the locker rooms and things, that I would lose my place in the social hierarchy. And that's a big cost and a big price to pay. And I just found myself, the more I understood that, the less I was interested in staying to that rock-solid promise I had made to myself earlier.
Well, what you're about to tell us should be a clarion call to every parent who is watching this program. But really, that transition from commitment not to do the things that your dad did to actually becoming the very thing that you loathed started when you were 13 years of age and you went to a party at a cool kid's house. You know, it was the cool party.
It was the party.
The very first party that you had gone to of such a nature.
Right. And when I got there, I went downstairs where they had kind of a rec room down there. And I was first of all shocked. The lights were low and there were people kind of coupled off, kissing right out in the open. And I was just like shocked. Well, as I got to the bottom of the stairs and just walked in there, a girl just came out of the darkness, and she was really curvy. I mean, she had developed real early, and it was junior high, but I mean, she looked like she was 18. And she said, "You know, I'd like you, I want to be teacher. I'd like you to, I'd like to play school. I'll be your teacher, and you can be my pet." And she kind of nodded over to a room, and she was going to take me in and, I guess, teach me some things. And I was completely amazed. And I just quickly said, "Oh, no, but I like Amy," just hoping to get her off my back. Well, Amy was one of the most beautiful girls in the school. I never even spoken to her before because she was just so beautiful. And so anyway, they went and got Amy, brought her over, and I was just so humiliated because I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to act. And in fact, within 10 minutes, I'd left the party and kind of slunk my way back home. And really, by the time I got home and turned on the lights at home, I had already started to soften in just that one party. I'd already started to soften in my commitment to treating girls well, because I knew that if I didn't get with the program, I was going to stop being invited to the parties and stop being part of the group.
And that one event changed the direction of your life for many years.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, let's fast forward the story a little bit, Fred. When you became a Christian, obviously you did not want to be a Christian man and using pornography, but you say addicted to pornography is probably a much better terminology.
Yeah.
What do you say about that I just use this?
Well,
It's a tool or all of these things that people say.
Well, if we really look at the way that we're created as men, we know from just decades of study that when a man looks at pornography or something sensual like that, that there's a release of pleasure chemicals in his brain, hits the limbic center, and it feels really, really good. And what we know also is that it entails a lot of the strongest chemicals in the human body. So that'll include, for instance, chemicals like dopamine, which is 30 times stronger than cocaine. We also know from research now that when you lay side by side what happens in the brain from like a syringe full of heroin or looking at pornography, it's practically the same thing chemically in the brain. So for us to say that we're just using pornography, that's really a misnomer, because when you look at what's happening inside, there's a very addictive process going on. And I would also say to someone, well, then try to stop using pornography. It's a very difficult thing to do.
How did you get free? Because you married your wife, you wanted to be a good husband, you're a Christian man, and yet you still had this struggle. Every man struggled.
Well, one of the things that I did right away when I got married is I just decided I was not going to use my wife's money, which, it's our money, so I was going to use my wife's money to buy something that would be destroying our relationship. So I quit the porn right away, but the thing is, I replaced it with other things. R-rated movies, lingerie ad inserts in the Sunday paper, might be joggers jogging by, I'd lust after them. So a lot of times we can replace the porn with other things, and we're really not free at all, and we're no more clean before God than when we started. And the real issue for me was, once I had made that switch from porn to these other things, okay, now how do I get rid of all of it? And, the Lord... my dad was hooked on porn, my grandfathers were hooked on porn, so it was kind of a family thing being passed down. And the real issue came was when I had a son who was 2 years old, a little toddler, and he would walk up to me with these bright eyes, and I could tell what his eyes were saying. You're my hero. I want to grow up to be just like you. And sometimes I would burst out crying, and I would say, no, you can't grow up like me, because I knew I couldn't get free from this sexual sin. And I knew that likely I was going to pass that on to him, and he was going to be in that same jail cell that I'd always been in. And it's a very painful time, but the Lord used that time to bring me to the point where, I could engage the battle and actually win.